Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, you are a first ballot degenerate Hall of Famer after last night's game. A dreadful game against the Miami Dolphins right here in our home city. They call it South Florida. You can call it Miami, whatever you refer to it as. There is a stench hovering over Hard Rock Stadium after this latest performance by the Miami Dolphins. But we pay tribute to Brian Callahan on a very important day where we owe homage to many people here on the program, and it's going to be an historic day in Major League Baseball. If you're a baseball fan, all kinds of stuff is on tap here as you have the opening of 4 wildcard series. But Callahan, you have a 4th and goal with 30 seconds to go. It's going to take 2 touchdowns for the Miami Dolphins to go ahead and overcome the deficit of 12 points at the time. 4th and goal from the 4-yard line, 30 seconds to go in the game. You're thinking, everybody's thinking, hey, guy's going to take a knee, give the ball back to the Miami Dolphins. They're not going to be able to do anything with it. And all of the people that had gambled on the over-under total of 37 and a hook were ready to do to Kazatsky. They were probably already online at the window because the game was clearly going to be under, or so it seemed like from the very start. It was 9-3 at halftime. You had 2 teams, and if you looked at this game from any analytical standpoint, you had 2 teams that couldn't score at a Heidi Fleiss pool party. It's an old reference. You might have to look that one up. Even if they were accompanied by Charlie Sheen. You get the picture. I mean, this is going to be an orgy. If you can't get home there, you have a problem. And everybody, I was thinking that, geez, I mean, these 2 teams are so offensively starved at this stage. You had the Dolphins throwing Tyler Huntley, a local kid made good, but nonetheless, not even a reasonable facsimile of the concussed Tua Tagovailoa, who vows he's going to come back, even though he did his last press conference in Hebrew. And Will Levis, who was an accident waiting to happen. I mean, this guy was executing clown plays as if they were called. And then he goes out of the game. You got Mason Rudolph in there. We didn't even know he was still in the league. Of course, he did distinguish himself a little bit as a backup and eventually a starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years ago. But it wasn't like every game that you watched Mason Rudolph in, you're thinking, wow, this is going to be comparable to the Thriller in Manila. It just wasn't. And not the most exciting of quarterbacks. And everything is indicating the under players are going to score here, except that on that 4th down play, Callahan decides to run a play, and he sends Pollard around the right side. I don't know if that was a design. And he goes in for the touchdown, and a lot of tickets went up in smoke. The under players had to be getting carried out of the various casino sports books literally in body bags after that one. A tough defeat, but definitely put you think there's no awareness of this stuff? And it ties in perfectly with the news of the day in the sports world, which is the passing of Pete Rose. Now, we had 2 NFL games last night. Dolphin game against Tennessee was dreadful to watch. It was an atrocity. And the Detroit game against Seattle, the polar opposite, as they put like 7,000 yards on the board and a lot of points. And that turned out to be a wild and very entertaining shootout. But, yeah, I mean, Pete Rose passing. I did a million shows here over the many years that I was on the radio and TV, mostly in South Florida, some national shows as well. And the question inevitably would be asked, is Pete Rose, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? And I don't think anybody would really question that, especially when you consider how much gambling and degenerate behavior is at the very fabric of virtually every sporting event now. Don't think there wasn't some allusion to the over-under situation on that 4th and goal with Tennessee last night. It used to be a taboo thing where Al Michaels would say, well, there are a lot of people interested in this extra point. It's like, fuck you, Al. You need this point. I mean, you could hear him rooting against that field goal the other day in, I think that was the Cowboys game, and he's screaming for this thing to go wide to the right. Unbelievable. But, yeah, I mean, you often see where there's some kind of a degenerate angle to everything that's going on in sports today, even in the telecast, where normally was you would get fired for discussing this sort of shit. And sure enough, Pete Rose, I mean, by the nature, and maybe you use the Reggie Bush return of the Heisman theory, that the conditions of the game have changed so much that who cares that they gave him a horse that ran in the Del Mar debutante, and his parents just happened to be in a winner's circle when they were homeless like 2 days previously. Okay, so maybe there was a little under the table cash there, but we can overlook that now because everybody's getting paid. And I think if you look at the climate that exists right now in professional sports and the warm embracing that they've done of all of the various gambling entities and propositions and bets and odds are being posted during the course as graphics during the course of a telecast, I think you could have given Pete Rose a pass a long time ago. Hall of Fame credentials, certainly. What was he, a Hall of Fame saint of an individual? There were a lot of unflattering assertions about sex with underage women, which he denied. And certainly he lied to everybody for years about whether or not he bet on baseball. He kind of had an indication that maybe something was up, though, and a little bit unscrupulous when he would bring in Pedro Borbon, who had just pitched like 6 innings the day before. And you're thinking Pete must have the over in the total in this game because he's bringing in a guy who's absolutely finished. And he's going to just try to jump up and juice up the score totals. And that's going to be it. And he never really had a good explanation for some of those moves. But may he rest in peace. Hall of Fame, certainly. Hall of Fame individual. Maybe everybody that lives in South Florida, where he kind of hung out for most of his life, had some kind of experience with Pete Rose. I did many times, came across him, did a lot of interviews with Pete Rose. He was sort of irascible, I guess you could say, sometimes. Maybe a little bit of arrogance came out, and people resented that he wouldn't sign an autograph unless you bought the baseball that he was selling out of the trunk of his car. But in general, what was the epitome of everything that you would have wanted in a baseball player. And I think you would have to say that should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. Because I think if Bart Giamatti hadn't checked out, I think you would have seen him back and reinstated in the game. All right, we're going to be joined by Scotty M here, and this is going to be great because this man has been on fire, as has the case has been with almost all of our handicappers. If you are betting on games and you got baseball, a full slate of baseball coming up, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the course of the games. If you think you know your stuff, get in on the $200,000 mega contest. Look at that handsome gentleman popping up there. As soon as I mention 200 grand, there's money in the bank with Scotty M. The mega contest, you pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance to win weekly prizes and a share of 200K. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, you can indulge in over 150 slot games to make available. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Scotty M, it's a day of celebration. How are you, my friend? Good to have you on.
I heard you talking about Pete Rose. I had a lot of experiences meeting with Pete myself personally at Gulfstream. I
Yes.
spent quite a bit up at the High Roller Room. I always enjoyed him. He was a nice guy. I always saw him out in Vegas quite a bit too. He's always at the that memorabilia store out there signing balls, and he was always friendly to me. Always recognized me, even a couple of years where I didn't see him. Charlie Hustle all the way. I mean, if anyone deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for the sport they played in, this guy should be at the top of the Mount Rushmore.
This guy should be the fucking commissioner of baseball. Posthumously, they should put him in the Hall of Fame and name him the all-time commissioner of baseball. With the degenerate gambling that's going on in the game today,
Yep.
who would be better to administrate all of this stuff than now the late great Pete Rose? Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, being around racetracks my whole life, I always ran into Pete Rose at various places, including I was doing a television show out of Tampa Bay Downs for about 8 weeks one year, and it was during, of course, the time of spring training.
Yep.
And Pete, I believe, was with Philadelphia at the time, and Philly, I think, trained in St. Pete, which was nearby. And as soon as the first flash went up on a board, you would see like 20 grand in the win pool on one horse. And then you're wondering, wait a minute. I mean, the whole pool might have been 20 grand for the day, except for the fact that Pete had driven his Lamborghini inside the turnstiles so he could get to the window quickly and then come back out, and he would make it back in time to give a the lineup card to the umpire at spring training.
Oh
This
yeah.
predated simulcasting and betting on your phone.
He would send it in. I mean, I used to see him in the room. He wasn't shy about his money. He kept it like right on the table, big stacks of money, cash on the table in the high limit room at Gulfstream. So he was definitely not shy when it came to moving his money around and letting people see that. But yeah, he was a big player, and I got nothing bad to say about. I mean, I don't know him on that basis, but from the times I met him and him remembering me and his mentioned saying my name, even was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess he could have been perceived by some people as abrasive. Dan Marino was perceived by some people that way, even though he's a good guy. And then you realize, and now Pete sought attention. I don't know that Marino did as much
Right.
in public, but so Pete was going to be bombarded by people, and it was the way he was making his living, actually, for a long period of time. So, and the Jim Gray thing still bothers me when he was badgering him they finally let him go to a ball game, for God's sake. I mean, he's standing on the grave of Marge Schott at second base there, and Jim Gray has to grab the attention. Go, hey, Pete, you want to admit it right here? Admit it. You did it. You did it. You bet on baseball.
Yeah.
Which we all knew he did, but I mean, leave the guy alone already. All right, let's get into it. Now, you've been hot here on the show. Scored big with Arkansas last week on college football. Also, you went down in flames with me with the Buffalo Bills. That turned out to be a bit of an optical illusion
Oh, yeah.
that their offense was in perfect synchronization and they were going to be on a smooth magic carpet ride, Scotty M, to the Super Bowl. Now, we don't know. They still may make it, but certainly an atrocious performance by their offense against what seemed to be a Baltimore defense that had risen from the dead and
Yeah.
gotten back to what you might have anticipated before the season. But today's a great day. I don't know how you feel about this because I think you're old school like me. I know we're heavily immersed in football right now, both college and pro. 2 games last night. Hopefully people made a score on. Do you agree with my premise, though, that Brian Callahan goes immediately, first ballot, no question, into the Degenerate Hall of Fame for running the ball into the end zone there on a 4th and 4 with 30 seconds to go, game in hand. All he has to do is take a knee. But the logic, all with the under players last night, I would imagine, I don't know if you tracked this, how much money was bet percentage-wise on the under, but you had 2 teams that are completely lame offensively with backup guys in there, and he runs it in to accomplish the over. That had to knock a lot of people right off their feet.
Well, I went to that shit show game last night with my son. We went down to the stadium. We kind of left, midway through the fourth quarter because we just saw, it was just not happening. But I told him in the car. It's funny you say that because I said the right thing to do is just kneel down. You're going to make them drive 97 yards with no timeouts down the other side with a 12-point lead. I mean, I knew the total was at stake at 37. But the right thing to do at that point in time, to be honest, why shove it? Why shove it basically in their backside by running for a touchdown? Just drop down. What do they have? 25 seconds. There's no way in the world they can score 2 touchdowns in 25 seconds with no timeouts. So mathematically the game was over at that point. Not over literally, but they could have just dropped down. And the final score should have been what it was 20. I think it was 22-12 at that point.
You didn't get to see this unless they were showing clips of Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, on the screen. But wow, this guy looked like an innocent man who was just sentenced to life in prison the entire time. He had this incredulous, stunned look on his face. And I thought it was a little bit of an indictment against this guy, this cerebral guy. I don't know what he said in the locker room, but he tends to go with this like Nietzsche, Martin Buber type of philosophical approach that nobody understands. It's like, really? I mean, life is meaningless? What the fuck are you saying? But you never see him get demonstrative or animated with players and or his coaching staff, even to the point like your man Bill Belichick used to do, where his team would be facing some adversity. You'd see Belichick drawing up a fucking play in the dirt with Tom Brady and the offensive line around here, and he's saying, "Hey, listen, you Skoronski, you're going to block this guy." I didn't see this with Mike McDaniel. He looked like he was incapable of handling what was going on, and he was incredulous, looking out there and thinking, "I can't believe my team is this bad."
Yeah, I mean the Dolphins just look like since the Seattle game, obviously they didn't score. I mean it took them to the fourth quarter of this game, so let's say almost 7.5 quarters before they put up an offensive touchdown. I mean the play calling looked terrible. The defense hung in there. They played okay, but their offense, I mean, I don't know where it went. It's just there was nothing going on right. That obviously they put a quarterback in that doesn't really know the system. It takes a little time to get that system, especially a McDaniel type of system. It just didn't look right. I mean, it just didn't look right. They didn't look like they came prepared. And as bad as Tennessee was, 0-3 coming into the game, I mean they looked like they were prepared for that short week to take advantage of a beaten up Dolphin team, and then obviously they did that.
And we'll get into, I don't know if this is going to be one of your plays or a game you want to analyze, but the Dolphins installed as 1-point favorites over your beloved Patriots.
Actually, right now the Patriots are a 1.5 point favorite. I mean, this is going to be the ultimate. What they call this, the toilet bowl game, not the Super Bowl. This is teams going in bad directions right now, facing up against each other. No, I have no opinion on this particular matchup, but I do love a couple of college games this week for the audience and a couple of pro games, which I'll get through real quick for you.
Okay, before we get to that, I don't know if you're putting up baseball as well, but this is, it should be a national holiday. This is the day that back in the day when there was like one game on TV a week, you used to fake a stomach ache so you didn't have to go to school if it happened to be like a Tuesday afternoon Yankee game on WPIX. And you have 4 playoff games, wild card playoffs getting underway. Big advantage. I have to give baseball some credit for doing things right. Huge advantage if you're the higher seed, having all 3 potential games, and certainly the first 2, and the deciding game, then all 3 in your home park if you came in as the higher seed in this
Yep.
wild card round. So gave a lot of credit to the regular season, the results. You had this wild playoff doubleheader yesterday with the first game, and the Mets and the Braves deciding who would go to the postseason. The Snakes get aced out, last year's World Series runner-up. And you're going wall to wall today, Scotty M. Are you going to gargle with Visine and watch all of these games?
I'm definitely a fan of the playoffs in any sport. I love the hockey NHL playoffs. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Playoffs, yeah. I mean that 162 game season. It's just to sit through that all year, watching those games every day. Meaningless games. I mean, I guess they're meaningful at whatever, but long season. Yeah, I love the baseball playoffs. I'm definitely going to be dabbling with some games as it gets more into it, and I will have some baseball selections coming up. I think it's going to be an exciting year. I think it's an open market. I think you got a lot of teams in there that have a shot of getting the job done. I mean, obviously the Yankees, all the big boys are going to get the attention, but there's some teams out there that are pretty solid. I think it's going to be a wide open, season in baseball.
I might be inclined to take a little shot today, and this again is like the logic where everything looks like pristine, some kind of empirical formula for success and cashing, as the under did last night in that Dolphins-Titans debacle. But this kid, Tariq Screwball of the, I don't
Yeah,
know, is it Screwball? No, Screwball, right? And
Cuba.
Screwball, he's been sensational. He won the pitching triple crown in the American League. He's going for the Tigers today on the road against Framber Valdez, outstanding clutch pitcher for the Astros. And certainly the Astros have experience and vast postseason credibility. But would it be worth a shot? You're getting plus 120 on the road with this guy who was spectacular this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was no hotter team in the second half of the baseball season than the Detroit Tigers. They had the best record, I believe, out of all the teams in the second half of the season. They played phenomenal. They ended on a high. This guy had a phenomenal season. I think what was he, 18-4 and 19-4, a 2.5 ERA. I mean, strikeout master. How can you give a guy like this, really, I think I saw 150, so you can get back 130 the other way, 125, 130 the other way on a guy that could be a possible Cy Young Award winner this year in the American League. I mean,
You have to figure he's got it wrapped up, right? 18-4, 2.39 earned run average.
yep,
Team was 21-10 in games that he started. And he led the league in strikeouts, in ERA, and in wins.
yeah, he's great.
The pitching triple crown. So yeah, if you're getting a price with that guy, even on the road against a very good and well tested playoff team that has most of its components still intact from previous glory accomplishments in the postseason,
Yeah.
with an upstart Tiger team, but laced with confidence. So probably worth a shot there at a little bit of a price. So he'll probably get tagged for 6 runs in the first inning and will be buried. All right. So yeah, 4 baseball games on tap. I don't know if you like any of those. And then let's get into some. Let's get into the money making aspect of things here on Bury Your Bookie, Scotty M, and get into some college and pro football.
Well, let's try to bury the bookie. I'm going to start off with that Thursday night NFL game. I think it's a little interesting game. Short week again. Two teams, coming off some wins. Obviously, Tampa Bay blowing out Philadelphia pretty damn easy in that game, made it look easy. And obviously against Atlanta, who came with a last-second 57 or 58-yard field goal to get the job done. I like the way Tampa's playing right now on both sides of the ball. I think Mayfield is having a hell of a year. He's making good decisions early in the season. Atlanta, they're a solid team, but they're an up and down team. They're probably like they're going to be now. They're going to be all throughout the year. Probably a 50-50 team, maybe a little better than that. But I like this Tampa game. I like Tampa in this matchup. I would get this line to +2. It's hovering in the area of 1.5 to 2. I think Tampa's solid. They're playing good on the defense. Their offense is keeping the mistakes away. I think they could definitely beat a team like Atlanta in this spot. So I like Tampa in this game +2 on Thursday night NFL. And do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. Roll right through them here, Scotty M.
Well,
When you're rolling, man, don't stop the man. That's the essence of what we're doing here.
Let's roll then. We're going to jump on another NFL game on Sunday. It's the only game I'm spotlighting. I'm going to take Green Bay. I think that this is the game, their showcase game. Last week they came storming back in the second half. I had the Vikings against them last week. They were up 28-0, and then Green Bay shot themselves out of a cannon out of nowhere, made a game of that game, obviously. But I like Green Bay. I think this is their week. I think Love had his week back after being out for a couple of weeks. The Rams are beatable. There's no doubt about it. I don't care if it's in their building or anywhere else. I like Green Bay. I would get this line down to 2.5. It's hovering around 3.5. I'd keep it under a field goal. I think Green Bay's going to win this game big, but I still like to keep on these spreads on it to 3 or 3.5 to under 3 or 3.5. So 2.5, Green Bay, best bet.
All right, getting points with the Buccaneers against the Falcons, laying a couple of points with the Green Bay Packers going against the Los Angeles Rams.
And I got
what else do we have, Scotty?
Yeah, no problem. Here's a team that's playing outstanding in college football. Doesn't really get the notoriety, but I like Indiana against Northwestern. They're 5-0. They've been dominating every game. If you look at their numbers, offensively, defensively, showing up on every game so far in their 5 wins. And I think that the line on this game for them to go on the road, and they're making them like a 13.5 point favorite. I just think they're going to blow Northwestern out. Northwestern, to me, shaky at best. I like Indiana to continue their winning ways. Don't say unbelievably to say they'll be 6-0 the first 6 weeks. I believe that's going to happen. And I get this line at about 12.5 with Indiana on the road. I don't like laying favorites to begin with, and especially on the road, double-digit favorites. But I think this team is a 21 to 26 point win in this game. I think they dominate over Northwestern. And one other game I like Boston College. I'm going to get it to +3. They're playing Virginia. BC's just finding ways to win. Even last week without the quarterback, and they say he's questionable again. They found a way to pull themselves together in the second half of the game and come back and eke out a win, 21-20. That line went from 13 down to 8 after the quarterback was announced out for BC. But I think BC's talented enough. They're 4-1. They're playing Virginia 3-1. I like the dog with BC. They always seem to fare well in these type of matchups. So I'm going to take BC as a live dog +3 against Virginia. And I think that if Virginia was right, that line should have been a little higher.
Excellent stuff as always, Scotty M. All right, people want to follow you, and obviously you're building up quite a reputation and credibility here on the program with your winning plays 3 weeks in a row. So where do people find your information?
The best way the audience out there can get in touch with me is through TikTok, and they can come directly to me. They can DM me, send me a message. If you're a serious player, shoot me a message. Hey, I'm interested in some private service, or you can DM me about it, games or whatever the case may be. If I can help you, I got no problem doing that. I answer all the DMs personally, and that's at TikTok is SM Picks, Picks. That's it. That's my official TikTok, guys. Don't go anywhere else because there's some copycats out there, some yo-yos trying to be me, even put my videos of me on their site trying to get followers of mine over. But my site is on TikTok, SM Picks, Picks. That's it.
Unscrupulous, degenerate pigs.
Oh,
these people.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they got
Scotty,
my videos from my site on their site.
That's nasty, my friend. I assure you, We operate here on Bury Your Bookie with the ultimate in integrity and moral fortitude. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Good luck with all your plays and with all of your followers. And we'll talk to you again next week, my friend.
Thank you, Defo. Always a pleasure being with you. You're my man.
Scotty M, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so a couple of games in the pros that he likes coming up, including the Thursday night affair. He likes the Buccaneers. He likes Green Bay. He likes Indiana laying a bunch of points on the road. And Boston College getting points versus Virginia. Well, one game kind of popped out of me. I don't understand this one. How the Vikings, they're playing a neutral site against the New York Jets. They're playing a game over in London. How are the Vikings only 2.5-point favorites over the New York Jets, who look like absolute shit? And you talk about a team and dissension and distractions and all of this stuff. Normally, you can kind of bypass some of that. It's interesting to write about and theorize about, but and once the game starts, does it matter all that much? I think if you look at the body language of a couple of teams, I mean, the Jets look completely defeated after losing. I mean, blowing this game to the Broncos, and then it had to hurt even more that after they were already dead in the water, Zerline, who can kick 70-yard field goals, misses what for him would be a very, very favorable make situation, and they blow the game outright to the Denver Broncos, who had a quarterback that threw for 60 fucking yards. So I don't know how they're favored or within a field goal of the Minnesota Vikings, who have been the darlings so far of the National Football League. You would have to think if there was some kind of revenge factor ever, that Sam Darnold, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would be sitting there going, you know what, I really want to fucking beat these New York Jets, but maybe there's a little of that subconsciously in play, because he's playing great. And the Jets really look like garbage this past week against Denver. So they have to schlep all the way to London for these games. Usually one team plays like crap there. I'm assuming it's more likely to be the Jets in this one. And I'd probably be willing to lay the 2.5 with the Minnesota Vikings, at least on the preliminary perusal. And we're a long way out from the NFL lines. All right, tomorrow we'll have Troy West. He's been great. Sweet Peru last week for Troy West did a dynamite job for us. Thursday, we're going to get into the baseball playoffs in a little bit of detail. We failed to make this connection with Mike Jones last week here on the program, but we promise we have solved the technical issues, and he will be joining us to talk some baseball and football with us on Thursday. The professor, always great on college football, joins us on Friday. So a lot to look forward to. Rest in peace, Pete Rose. Was always good to me in the many years and the many different occasions that I came across him. Usually he was sitting at the old Pompano harness track before it became a casino many years ago. And he took a wrecking ball to it a few years back. It's now a Harris Casino. But back in the day, it was the winter capital of harness racing. A lot of celebrities on hand. And you would see Pete in the clubhouse dining room, which was pretty good by parimutuel facility standards, the restaurant. And he would just have a stack of fucking hundreds on his table, and nobody would touch him because it was Pete. It was off limits, and he was just up there partying and having a good time. But a degenerate. I really believe this, that if justice was to be served by Major League Baseball after freezing this guy out of the Hall of Fame for 25 years, especially with a fabric of gambling being involved and infused in virtually every aspect of every sport, that posthumously, and maybe as soon as today, Pete Rose should be named the permanent commissioner of baseball. All right, we'll see you next time on Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest. Thanks so much to the people at No Filter and everybody connected there, Leslie, Henry, and Joe. And we'll see you next time on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.